There is a law written into the very structure of life. Every man is either the master of himself or the servant of his impulses. No one escapes this law. You are either guided by the deliberate commands of your own will, or you are tossed upon the winds of emotion, circumstance, and the opinions of others. And here is the truth, that the average man resists because it confronts his comfort. Success does not come to the one who waits for motivation to arrive. Success does not visit the one who moves only when he feels like it. Success answers only to the force you exert upon yourself when you would rather remain still, the force that compels you forward in the absence of ease, the force that bends your own mind into obedience. If you wish to live as the architect of your destiny rather than the tenant of fate, you must learn the rare and unrelenting art of forcing yourself to be successful. Understand this before all else. There will never be a day when the world conspires to make your rise easy. There will never be a season when conditions align perfectly, when every voice affirms you, when every door stands open without resistance. Life does not grant such conditions freely. They are created by those who decide that no resistance, internal or external, will be permitted to hold them still. Most men fail not because they lack opportunity, but because they wait for the permission of comfort before they act. They confuse the desire for success with the discipline of success. And so they live in the purgatory of intention, imagining what they could do while never commanding themselves to do it. If you are to break this cycle, you must begin with the first and immovable pillar, definiteness of purpose. Without a definite aim, your mind is a ship without a rudder. No amount of wind will take it to the harbor of your choosing. To force yourself forward, you must have a destination so clear, so detailed, so burning in your mind that no lesser aim can distract you from it. Write it down, burn it into memory. Let it stand before you each morning as a command from the highest version of yourself. This is where we are going. This is what we are building. This is who we must become. Without this definiteness, force collapses into motion without direction, and motion without direction is the treadmill upon which the masses exhaust themselves. The second pillar is self-discipline, the ability to command yourself in the moment when obedience is hardest. This is where most break. They know what they want. They know what must be done, but they permit the fleeting voice of discomfort to overrule the permanent voice of destiny. Discipline is the art of placing the latter above the former always. If you command yourself to rise before dawn, you rise. If you command yourself to work when others are at leisure, you work. If you command yourself to persist when the first, second, or even 10th attempt fails, you persist. You do not negotiate with yourself, for negotiation invites defeat. You obey your own orders as a soldier obeys the command of his general, not because it is easy, but because victory depends upon it. The third pillar is autosuggestion, the deliberate feeding of your mind with the instructions it must carry out. The subconscious does not distinguish between truth and falsehood. It acts upon the ideas most frequently impressed upon it. If you do not give it orders, it will take orders from your fears, your habits, and the careless words of others. Each day, you must speak to yourself with the authority of one who expects to be obeyed. I will do this. I will become this. I will persist until the work is complete. These are not wishes. They are commands. They are the mental equivalent of setting your hand to the wheel and refusing to release it until the ship has docked. But force without emotional control is power in the hands of a reckless driver. This is why the fourth pillar, mastery over emotion, is essential. If you allow moods to dictate your actions, you will act in bursts and stall in valleys. The man who forces himself to success does not wait to feel inspired. He moves whether inspiration is present or absent. He responds rather than reacts. When anger comes, he does not lash out. He redirects the heat into work. When fear comes, he does not freeze. He channels the energy into preparation. Emotional detachment does not mean the absence of feeling. It means the governance of feeling. Your emotions may knock at the door, but they do not sit in the captain's chair. From here we arrive at accurate thinking, the habit of stripping every decision down to its truth. The undisciplined mind is swayed by appearances, gossip, and assumption. It hesitates because it believes shadows to be walls. The disciplined mind examines the facts, weighs the evidence, and acts on reality, not rumor. This is critical because the wrong thoughts left unchallenged become the chains that bind you. Accurate thinking cuts those chains. It keeps you from wasting force on battles that do not exist and focuses it entirely on the actions that produce results. These 5 pillars form the machinery of self-compulsion, but machinery unused rusts, and rust becomes ruin. You must apply them daily, relentlessly, until they operate without your conscious prompting. You must move from knowing what they are to becoming the kind of man who does not know how to live without them. Forcing yourself to success means eliminating the escape routes, removing the option to quit, erasing the habit of delay, destroying the false belief that tomorrow is safer than today. And here's where the true challenge lies. There will be days when the weight of the work feels greater than your capacity to lift it. There will be moments when solitude presses against you because few will follow the road you have chosen. There will be hours when every voice, including your own, whispers that it would be easier to step back into the crowd. In those moments, remember this law. If you allow emotions to govern your actions, you forfeit your power. But if you command your thoughts, you command your future. You must hold fast to the cause and effect truth. If you move only when it is easy, you will remain among the average. If you move regardless of ease, you will rise among the exceptional. If you wait for permission, you will wait until the end of your days. If you give yourself permission, you will write your own fate. Forcing yourself to be successful is not about cruelty to yourself. It is about loyalty to your vision. It is the recognition that the comfort you sacrifice now is a fraction of the comfort you will sacrifice if you spend your life unfulfilled. The pain of discipline is a seed. The pain of regret is a stone. One grows into something magnificent. The other crushes you. Decide then that you will be the master of your inner world. Guard your purpose with definiteness. Command yourself with discipline. Program your mind with autosuggestion. Govern your emotions with detachment, and navigate with accurate thinking. When these are in place, force is no longer a desperate push. It is the steady, unstoppable momentum of a man who has burned his bridges and marches only forward. And as you march, something remarkable will happen. The world, which once seemed indifferent or resistant, will begin to bend. Doors will open that were once closed. Opportunities will appear that were once invisible. People will offer aid who once stood aside. They are not responding to luck. They are responding to the gravitational pull of a man who has taken control of himself. This is how you force yourself to be successful, not with bursts of effort followed by surrender, but with the unbroken application of will over time. Until the day comes when the force is no longer something you must summon, but something you have become. Then, and only then, will success have no choice but to obey you. There is a brutal truth that stands at the entrance of all achievement, and most men will turn back the moment they hear it. No one is coming to make you do the work. Not your parents, not your friends, not your mentors, not even your own future self, unless you train it to obey you. This is the first gate you must pass through, the acceptance that your rise or your ruin will come from no hand but your own. And if this is so, you must learn the most difficult art there is, the art of compelling yourself to act, not when it is easy, but when it is the hardest thing in the world to do. Every human being has felt the difference between what they should do and what they do, between the plan and the action, between the voice of reason and the pull of comfort. Most surrender to the pull. They become servants of their impulses, and in doing so, they hand over the keys to their destiny. The successful are different. They take those keys back. They place them in their own hands and lock the door on everything that would enter without permission: laziness, doubt, hesitation, fear. They do not wait for a better day, for the right mood, or for the approval of others. They force themselves. This force is not a one-time push. It is a system. A man who forces himself to success is like a general who has mastered the art of war. He knows his soldiers, his weapons, his terrain. He does not rely on chance. He relies on discipline. The 5 great weapons of self-compulsion: definiteness of purpose, self-discipline, autosuggestion, mastery over emotion, and accurate thinking are his arsenal. When these are sharpened, coordinated, and used without fail, they make forward movement inevitable. Definiteness of purpose is the commander of the army. Without it, the other weapons fight without aim. Imagine a ship at sea with full sails but no destination. It will move, but it will never arrive. The average man fills his life with motion, mistaking it for progress. He is busy every day, but the busyness is scattered, unfocused, dictated by the demands of others. He wonders why the years pass and his great vision remains unbuilt. It is because he never chose the harbor. Definiteness of purpose is not merely a goal written in vague terms. It is a vision so vivid that your mind can walk through it as if it already exists. It has edges, boundaries, measurements. It is specific enough to be tested. You can ask, am I closer or farther today? And know the answer. This clarity does something remarkable to the mind. It gives every decision a single point of reference. Every person you meet, every opportunity you consider, every thought you entertain is weighed against the question, does this move me toward my purpose? If yes, it stays. If no, it goes. This filtering alone removes half the distractions that cripple the undirected. Without this, self-compulsion becomes erratic. You may push yourself to work, but you will find the work scattered, inconsistent, and ultimately unfulfilling. You will mistake activity for achievement, and in the end, your force will dissipate into nothing. Self-discipline is the infantry, the soldiers on the ground who advance inch by inch, regardless of the terrain. This is the habit of obeying your own orders. It begins with small commands. Rise at this hour. Finish this task before rest. Spend this time on study no matter the mood. At first, these commands will feel unnatural. The undisciplined mind resists like a rebellious servant, arguing, bargaining, delaying. But each time you obey, the resistance weakens. Each time you disobey, it grows. Here is the law. You will either discipline your mind, or your mind will discipline you, and it will choose the path of least resistance every time. This is why most never rise. They are led by a commander who cannot issue a hard order without backing down when comfort protests. But when you master discipline, you discover a new power. You no longer need to wait for inspiration. You act because you have commanded yourself to act, and that command is law. Auto-suggestion is the supply line, the constant reinforcement that feeds the army with belief, focus, and direction. The subconscious mind does not rest. It works on whatever orders it is given most often. If those orders are the repeated fears of failure, the repeated doubts of possibility, then the subconscious will carry them out faithfully, sabotaging your actions before they begin. But if the orders are deliberate, repeated affirmations of your vision, your strength, and your inevitability of success, the subconscious will build its plans accordingly. The man who neglects autosuggestion is like a general who allows the enemy to send daily supplies into his own camp. The man who masters it ensures that every thought fed to the subconscious strengthens his position. This is why Napoleon Hill said, "You will become what you think about most of the time." It is not magic, it is mechanics. You are programming the operating system of your own mind. Mastery over emotion is the cavalry swift, decisive, able to turn the tide of battle in moments. Emotions are forces. They can be destructive when uncontrolled, but they can be the very fuel of victory when directed. Anger can destroy discipline when it lashes outward. It can also fuel relentless work when harnessed. Fear can paralyze when it governs action. It can sharpen preparation when subordinated to purpose. The key is detachment, not the suppression of feeling, but the choice to use it rather than be used by it. Here is a truth most never learn. Emotions are not commands, they are suggestions. The average man takes them as orders and obeys without question. The master acknowledges them, evaluates them, and either accepts or rejects them based on whether they serve the objective. This alone will save you from countless wasted days and impulsive decisions. Accurate thinking is the intelligence unit, the scouts who report the truth of the terrain. Without it, you are blind, moving based on rumors and illusions. Accurate thinking asks, is this true? How do I know? Does this serve my purpose? It refuses to act on incomplete or distorted information. This is critical because every decision you make draws upon your store of force. Make too many decisions based on false premises, and your force is wasted before it reaches the true battlefield. Accurate thinking also protects you from the greatest thief of energy, imagined problems. The undisciplined mind spends days and nights fighting battles that exist only in its own projections. The disciplined mind identifies the facts, addresses them, and discards the rest. When these five forces operate together, self-compulsion becomes a state of being rather than a state of effort. You no longer try to force yourself. You simply do what must be done, because the system you have built leaves no alternative. And here is the cause and effect reality. If you wait for inspiration before you act, you will act rarely. If you act regardless of inspiration, you will create results. If you create results, you will build belief. If you build belief, you will act with greater confidence. And this cycle will compound until forward motion is your natural state. This is how men build empires. This is how fortunes are made. Books are written, inventions are brought to life, and legacies are forged. Not through bursts of effort in the heat of excitement, but through the cold, consistent application of will over years. The man who forces himself to be successful understands that every principle is useless until it is lived. Knowledge without application is like a weapon left in its sheath during battle. It changes nothing, it protects nothing, it conquers nothing. You may memorize these laws, you may nod in agreement as they pass through your mind, but until you bend your days to obey them, they will remain nothing but words. It is in the act of enforcement, the moment you command yourself and comply, that transformation begins. Definiteness of purpose must be enforced every morning. Before the world lays its hands on you, before the demands and distractions arrive, you must return to the throne of your mind and renew your oath. This is where I am going. This is what I will do today to advance the cause. Without this ritual, you risk being pulled into the agendas of others. The undirected man wakes and drifts, the directed man wakes and decides, and that decision, repeated daily, becomes the axis around which the rest of his life turns. Self-discipline must be enforced in the smallest of moments. Discipline is not merely about great sacrifices, it is about the 1,000 tiny victories over the whisper of ease. When the alarm sounds and the warmth of the bed invites you to remain, discipline answers, rise. When the work becomes tedious and your mind wanders toward distraction, discipline answers, continue. When the results are slow and doubt asks you to stop, discipline answers, persist. Each obedience strengthens the muscle. Each defiance weakens it. And the day will come when your mind no longer debates your own commands. It will obey as instinctively as you draw breath. Autosuggestion must be enforced until it saturates your subconscious so completely that contrary thoughts find no foothold. You cannot rely on the mind to hold its course unaided. It must be reminded, reinforced, reprogrammed. Just as a garden, left untended, will grow weeds, your mind, left unguarded, will grow doubts. The gardener does not wait for weeds to appear before he plants. He fills the soil with what he has chosen so that the weeds cannot take root. Speak to yourself as the architect speaks to the builders, with precision, with certainty, with a clear image of what must be constructed. Mastery over emotion must be enforced in the heat of the moment. Detachment is not tested when you are calm. It is tested when provoked, when insulted, when fear grips your chest. The untrained mind reacts. The trained mind pauses, assesses, and acts according to purpose. This is why emotional mastery is inseparable from power. The man who cannot command himself in a storm will lose everything he has built in the first strong wind. The storm will come. Your task is to remain the captain, no matter its strength. Accurate thinking must be enforced in the privacy of your own reasoning. The lies that derail most lives are not told by others, they are told by the self, repeated until they become accepted as truth. You must challenge every thought that crosses your mind. Is this real, or is it the shadow of fear? Is this fact, or is it the opinion of someone who has never built what I intend to build? The disciplined thinker acts on verified truth, and because of this, his actions rarely need to be reversed. But understand this, all of these laws demand something that most will never give, the removal of escape routes. The average man always leaves himself an option to quit, a savings of comfort he can retreat to when the work becomes unbearable. The man who forces himself removes the retreat entirely. He burns the ships. He makes the goal the only option, so that every ounce of mind, body, and spirit is bent toward its attainment. This is why his results look impossible to those who live with an exit strategy in their back pocket. You must also understand the cause and effect here. If you command yourself only when it is easy, you will remain where you are. If you command yourself when it is hard, you will rise above where you are. If you command yourself without fail, you will eventually live where others cannot even imagine standing. And here is the truth most fear to face. The man who forces himself is never truly in competition with others. He is in competition with the version of himself that still seeks permission, comfort, and escape. Each day he wins against that version. He moves further into the territory where no one can follow without paying the same price. When you live this way long enough, something changes. The force you once had to summon becomes the current you naturally move in. You no longer drag yourself to the work. You are pulled toward it because it has become who you are. You no longer fight yourself to obey. Obedience has become instinct. And at this stage, your forward motion is inevitable. The world will call you disciplined, relentless, unstoppable. You will know the truth. You are simply living by the law you carved into yourself when you chose to force your own success. Momentum is a sacred thing, and when it is moving in your favor, you must guard it like treasure. Once broken, it is costly to restore. Once sustained, it will carry you farther than willpower alone ever could. The man who forces himself to be successful understands that momentum is built in layers, small victories, laid atop one another until they become unstoppable motion. At first, the victories are barely noticeable. Rising on time, completing the day's tasks without skipping the unpleasant ones, resisting the temptation to procrastinate on work that matters. In the beginning, each act of force feels isolated, disconnected from the grand vision. But over time, something begins to happen. The mind starts to associate obedience with progress, and progress with satisfaction. It becomes easier to comply with your own orders, not because the work has become easier, but because your identity has shifted. You are no longer a man trying to discipline himself, you are a disciplined man. And this shift is crucial. Forcing yourself is difficult when you are still at war with your self-image. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, every act of discipline will feel like resistance against nature. But when you deliberately practice these laws until they define you, your nature changes. You become the man who does what he says, who finishes what he starts, who moves without hesitation. And then the force is no longer a whip at your back, it is a current beneath your feet. Definiteness of purpose deepens in this stage. In the early days, it was an idea written down. Now it becomes a standard that shapes your every move. You start making faster decisions because anything that does not serve your purpose is instantly rejected. You no longer wrestle with distractions, you dismiss them before they take form. The more definite your purpose, the less room there is for anything else. This is why men without purpose are easily led astray. There is no anchor holding them in place when the winds of distraction blow. Self-discipline evolves here too. In the beginning, you used it to force yourself into action. Now you use it to refine your actions. You become precise in how you use your time. You stop giving effort to things that produce little return. You begin to notice that discipline is not just about doing hard things, it is about doing the right hard things. Many men exhaust themselves in the wrong direction and call it discipline. In truth, it is misdirected effort. The man who forces himself to be successful becomes a master of directed effort. All his energy flows toward the target. None is wasted. Autosuggestion takes on a sharper edge now. In the early days, you may have repeated affirmations to keep yourself from quitting. Now, you repeat them to keep yourself from settling. You are no longer battling the voice that says, "Stop, this is too hard." You are battling the more dangerous voice that says, "This is good enough." The average man quits when things are difficult. The ambitious man quits when things are comfortable. Both are forms of surrender. The man who forces himself does neither. His self-talk is a constant summons to the next level. Mastery over emotion becomes more subtle here. You will find that the storms which once shook you now barely disturb the waters. This is not because the storms have lessened, but because your vessel is stronger. You have seen yourself endure, and endurance breeds calm. Where others panic, you evaluate. Where others freeze, you move with precision. This calm is not the absence of urgency, it is urgency under control, a weapon far more dangerous than raw speed. Accurate thinking reaches its highest form in this stage. You begin to see how much of the world runs on assumption, opinion, and inherited belief. You stop taking information at face value, no matter the source. You stop accepting advice from those who have never built what you aim to build. And in doing so, you stop making the mistakes that drain years from a man's life. The masses will call you stubborn. In truth, you are simply loyal to the facts as they are, not as others wish them to be. At this point, something shifts in how the world responds to you. People begin to notice that you do not move like the rest. They cannot quite explain it. Perhaps it is the absence of hesitation, or the way you seem immune to common distractions, or the quiet authority with which you carry yourself. They see that you do not bend easily, and this creates a strange reaction. Some will respect you deeply, others will resent you entirely. Both are signs that you are moving beyond the reach of the average. And here lies a new challenge: isolation. When you begin forcing yourself to levels most will not attempt, you will find fewer and fewer companions on the road. Many will fall away, not out of malice, but because your standards make them uncomfortable. Do not mourn this. The climb thins the crowd. It must. The summit was never designed to hold everyone. You must learn to move forward without the need for constant companionship, for solitude is the training ground of mastery. If you endure this stage, you will arrive at the rarest point in a man's life, the place where forward motion is no longer optional. You have removed the retreat. You have made the goal the only path. And when this happens, you do not merely hope to succeed. You make success submit to your persistence. The world bends for men who refuse to bend to it. There comes a point in forcing yourself to be successful where the work is no longer the greatest challenge staying in the work island. The mountain tests you not just with the size of the steps, but with the length of the climb. This is where the imposters are revealed, where the talkers fall silent, and where the man who acts without compromise begins to separate from the field entirely. The longer you live under the law of self-compulsion, the more you will see that every victory has a dangerous shadow: complacency. The enemy of progress is not always failure. Often it is comfort disguised as success. You must understand this with absolute clarity. The moment you believe you have done enough, you invite decline. Success is not a static prize to be won and kept. It is a dynamic force that must be fed daily with action, discipline, and clarity of purpose. The day you stop forcing yourself forward is the day the ground begins to shift beneath you. This is why the man who masters definiteness of purpose does not arrive, he simply sets new destinations. His goals are not trophies. They are checkpoints. When he achieves one, he does not idle. He immediately fixes his mind on the next. This constant recalibration keeps his force alive. Without it, the mind drifts, and drifting is death to the disciplined. Self-discipline at this stage becomes a refinement of precision. You are no longer simply resisting temptation. You are engineering your life so that temptation rarely appears. You cut away distractions, people, and environments that weaken your edge. You remove not only what is harmful, but also what is merely neutral, because neutrality is still a thief of focus. The man who forces himself to the summit understands that the climb is too demanding to carry unnecessary weight. Autosuggestion here becomes sharper than a blade. You are no longer persuading yourself to keep going. You are programming yourself to expand. You tell yourself, I have not yet reached my limits. There is more in me than I have used. The work is not finished until I decide it is finished. These are not empty chants. They are mental commands to a subconscious that has been trained to obey without hesitation. Mastery over emotion now becomes your shield against the subtler storms, not just anger or fear, but boredom, impatience, and the restless craving for novelty. Many powerful men fall not because of great opposition, but because they become restless with steady progress and sabotage themselves in search of fresh excitement. The disciplined man knows that the most dangerous emotion is the one that whispers, "You deserve a break from your purpose." He hears it and refuses it. Accurate thinking now gives you another gift. It strips away the illusions that could make you careless. You see clearly that no matter how far you've climbed, gravity still exists. One reckless decision can undo years of progress. This awareness keeps you humble, vigilant, and fully engaged in the process. And then one day, without fanfare, you cross into a territory few men ever enter. The point where the force is no longer something you summon, it is who you are. You do not push yourself forward anymore. Forward is your natural direction. You do not wrestle with yourself to work. Work is the default state. You no longer need to believe you can do it. You know you will do it, because there is no longer a version of you that does otherwise. At this level, the world begins to bend in ways that outsiders call luck. Doors open. People seek you out. Opportunities appear unasked for. But you know the truth, this is not luck, it is gravity. You have built such a mass of discipline, persistence, and purpose that the world cannot help but be drawn into your orbit. And so the ending must be as sharp as the climb has been. You must decide here and now whether you will remain in the lowlands of hesitation or whether you will take the step that burns the bridge behind you. You must choose whether you will live as the servant of impulse or the master of your own command. Forcing yourself to be successful is not a season of life, it is a permanent way of living. It is the refusal to negotiate with weakness, the rejection of comfort when comfort costs your future, the unbroken pledge to yourself that you will finish what you began no matter how long the road. Do this, and you will not merely reach success, you will make success inevitable. Do this, and you will not only rise, you will remain. Do this, and no man, no circumstance, no misfortune will have the power to stop you, because the one thing they would need to break your own will is under your unshakable command. The time for gentle words is over. You have been given the laws, the weapons, the strategies. Now the question is not whether you understand them, but whether you will enforce them. And enforcement means war. Not against the world. The world is nothing but a mirror, but against the enemy that has lived inside you since the day you first retreated instead of advanced, delayed instead of acted, made peace with mediocrity instead of waging total war upon it. That enemy will not die quietly. It will resist every command you give. It will disguise itself as fatigue, as reason, as patience, as just taking it slow. But hear me well. Every time you yield to it, you surrender ground you may never recover. The man who forces himself to be successful burns that enemy out of existence through sheer, unrelenting action. He does not negotiate with it. He does not ask its opinion. He gives it no room to speak. Every day is another strike, another order obeyed, another inch claimed. And this is why he wins, because most men are willing to fight for a day, a week, a season, but he is willing to fight without end. There is no secret here. There is no mystery to why one man lives in the heights and another in the valleys. The difference is not luck, not talent, not even intelligence. It is the willingness to keep forcing forward when every muscle, every thought, every excuse is screaming to stop. You have felt this moment before. The wall, the fatigue, the weight. You know what comes next. Most stop, a few slow down. The rarest of all accelerate. And here is the law. Once you prove to yourself that you can accelerate through the wall, instead of stopping at it, you become a different being entirely. You begin to trust yourself in a way most never will. You no longer wonder if you will follow through. You know you will, because you have removed the possibility of quitting. This is where the crowd disappears behind you. This is where the noise fades. This is where you feel, for the first time, what it means to be unstoppable, not because you cannot be stopped, but because you cannot be made to stop. From this point forward, there is no going back to how you were. You will see comfort for what it is, a thief dressed as a friend. You will see hesitation for what it is, the assassin of dreams. You will see weakness for what it is, the disguised hand of failure, waiting for permission to choke the life out of your ambition. And you will give it no permission. There will be days when you will rise before the sun and the work will be heavier than you have ever known. There will be days when the results are invisible, when the doubt gnaws at you like rats in the dark. There will be nights when sleep tempts you before the task is done. And in each of these moments, you will stand in the center of your own mind and give the same command. Continue. You will continue because the alternative is death, not the death of the body, but the death of the one chance you have to live a life of your own design. You will continue because the fire that burns in the mind of a man who refuses to quit is worth more than all the fleeting pleasures that quitting can buy. You will continue because you have decided, once and for all, that you are not here to live as a servant to your weaker impulses, you are here to reign over them. And if you live this way long enough, the day will come when others will look at you and see something they cannot explain. They will see the calm in your eyes, the certainty in your movements, the absence of panic when storms hit. They will see that you are not pulled by every passing emotion, not distracted by every flashing light, not delayed by every minor obstacle. They will call you disciplined. They will call you relentless. They will call you lucky. But you will know the truth. You are simply the man who decided to force himself and never stopped. From this day forward, let there be no escape route, no hidden door, no quiet path back to comfort. Burn the bridges, cut the ropes, shatter the chains. Stand alone if you must, but stand with the unbreakable knowledge that there is nothing in this world that can match the force of a human being who has taken full command of himself. This is your law now. This is your nature now. And the world will bend, the future will open, and success will submit because you have left it no choice. Inspiration is a spark, but sparks die without fuel. Systems are the fuel, the habits, the routines, the non-negotiable disciplines that run, whether you feel like running them or not. This is the difference between the fleeting surge of the amateur and the relentless advance of the master. The amateur works when he feels the fire. The master works until the fire cannot die. You will not force yourself to be successful by living in bursts. You will not climb to the summit by taking one powerful step and then standing still. Success is the child of repetition, not of random effort, but of intentional, directed repetition. It is forged in the days when no one is watching, when there is nothing to prove but the promise you made to yourself. Definiteness of purpose at this stage is not simply clarity of direction, it is the complete removal of all other directions. The disciplined man does not keep multiple maps in his pocket, just in case. He has one. And because he has only one, he reads it daily, memorizes every turn, and moves forward with a confidence that terrifies the uncertain. Self-discipline here is no longer about forcing motion. It is about refining motion into perfection. You begin to optimize. You see where you waste minutes, where you spend effort for little gain, where you allow minor inefficiencies to erode major progress, and you remove them without mercy. The man who forces himself is not sentimental about old ways. If a method slows him, he cuts it. If a habit serves no measurable purpose, he burns it. If a belief limits him, he replaces it. Autosuggestion becomes an advanced weapon in this phase, not simply words to keep you moving, but precise programming to mold the future before it arrives. You speak to yourself as a general speaks to his army before battle, not only with orders for the day, but with the vision of the victory to come. You give your mind not only tasks, but outcomes, and you repeat them until your subconscious begins to seek them with the same hunger you do. Mastery over emotion now means you are no longer a slave to the highs or the lows. You do not allow success to make you arrogant, nor failure to make you timid. You ride neither wave. You steer the ship regardless of the sea's mood. The average man's productivity rises and falls with his emotions. The man who forces himself flattens that curve until his output is steady, predictable, and deadly consistent. Accurate thinking, in this final form, becomes the gatekeeper of all your decisions. You stop asking, "Do I want to?" and start asking, "Will this move me closer to my purpose?" If the answer is yes, you act without hesitation. If the answer is no, you dismiss without guilt. This is not cruelty, this is clarity, and clarity is mercy to the man who values his time above all else. And now the force becomes permanent. The decision to keep going is no longer made each morning. It was made once, long ago, and has never been revoked. You no longer argue with yourself. You no longer need to get motivated. You are not hoping for success, you are executing it. And that, more than anything else, is why you will reach it. You will walk among those who began with you and see that most have stopped. Some quit because it was hard. Some quit because it was slow. Some quit because they listened to the counsel of the comfortable. But you will still be moving, still applying the laws, still forcing yourself to honor the original decision. And the gap between you and them will have grown so wide that they will look across it and call it impossible. But you will know it was never impossible. It was inevitable for the man who refused to stop. This is the moment where most will hesitate, but you are not most. You have forced yourself this far, and now you must finish with the same precision, the same command, the same unbending will that brought you here. From this point forward, there is no permission to coast. Coasting is the death of momentum, and momentum is the only advantage you hold over the millions who wish but never act. You will not slow to admire the view. You will not wait for those behind to catch up. You will not plant your flag until the summit is under your feet. Understand this, every man is given opportunities, but only the man who has mastered himself can seize them without hesitation. Opportunities do not wait for the hesitant, they are devoured by the decisive. If you cannot act because you are tangled in emotion, enslaved to comfort, or uncertain in thought, you will watch those opportunities slip into the hands of the prepared. This is why forcing yourself to move forward without delay is not optional, it is the only way. The man who lives under this law becomes a force of nature. He does not waste energy on excuses. He does not negotiate with fatigue. He does not stop to count the miles he has walked. He keeps walking. He knows that the moment you begin to measure the distance, you start looking for a reason to stop. And stopping, even for a moment, is the first step towards surrender. You must burn that word surrender out of your vocabulary. Replace it with advance. Replace maybe later with now. Replace I hope with I will. And speak these words until they no longer sound like commands but like facts. You will know you have succeeded when you can no longer imagine a version of yourself that does anything less. And when you live this way long enough, the summit will come into view not as a surprise, not as a miracle, but as the natural result of a man who refused to stop climbing. And you will stand there not gasping in disbelief but breathing steadily, because you knew this day would arrive from the moment you committed to it. From that height, you will look down at the roads below, the winding paths, littered with the camps of those who stopped. You will see them telling their stories about why it wasn't worth it, why it wasn't the right time, why they could have if only. And you will know the truth. They did not lose because the climb was too hard. They lost because they refused to force themselves when it mattered most. You, however, will stand unbroken. You will know that every ounce of struggle, every battle against your own weakness, every relentless step taken when others sat down was the price, and you paid it without hesitation. And you will also know that this is not the end. The summit you stand on now is only the base of another, and you will turn without rest and begin the next climb, because this is who you are now. There will be no return to the man who waited, who hesitated, who compromised. That man is gone, buried under the weight of every disciplined step you took to escape him. What remains is a man who commands himself absolutely, who moves without permission, who creates his own momentum and bends the world to it. So I leave you with this, not a plea, not a suggestion, but a law. Force yourself, always. At every turn, in every season, when you feel like moving, move faster. When you feel like stopping, accelerate. When the voice in your head whispers for comfort, crush it with command. And live this way until you are no longer forcing yourself, because the force has become you. Then, and only then, will success be unable to resist you. The man who forces himself to be successful does not wait for the world to place a crown upon his head. He builds the crown, he carves it from the stone of his own discipline, and he places it there himself, not out of vanity, but out of recognition that no one else could have done it for him. And this is the essence of mastery, to become the source of your own rise. You will meet resistance until the last step. Understand this. Even as you approach the moment of victory, new distractions will appear. Old habits will try to resurface. Doubts you thought long buried will whisper again, tempting you to slow, to savor, to hesitate. Do not mistake these for signs to stop. They are the final tests. They are the gatekeepers at the door to the life you have built. They will yield only to relentless forward motion. And when you pass them, when you do not blink, when you do not negotiate, when you do not pause, you will step into a life that is no longer a hope, but a reality you have earned. Not given, not found, not stumbled into, earned, with sweat, with clarity, with the repeated act of compelling yourself to do what most will never demand of themselves. From this day forward, every time you feel the pull of hesitation, you will remember the law that brought you here, that the man who waits for perfect conditions will never act, but the man who acts regardless of conditions will shape them. You will carry this into every room, every decision, every season of your life. It will become your instinct to advance, not retreat, to decide, not delay, to complete, not postpone. You will not need to tell people you are different. They will know. They will see it in the way you walk into a room, in the calm weight of your presence, in the absence of wasted movement. They will feel it when you speak not the volume, but the certainty. They will recognize it in the way you move through chaos without being moved by it. And some will be drawn to it, while others will fear it. That is how you will know you have arrived. And yet, even at the summit, you will not plant your flag and retire. The true reward for mastering yourself is not a single victory. It is the ability to win again and again. This is why you will set your eyes on the next mountain before you have even descended from this one. You will live in the rhythm of conquest, not the comfort of having conquered. So here is the final command. Keep the pressure on. Not just today, not just this month, not until the applause dies forever. Make your discipline so constant, so undeniable that even in your final days you are still advancing, still refining, still building. Let those who watch your life understand that the force which carried you was not a trick, not a phase, not a moment of motivation. It was who you chose to be. And when it is all over, when your work is complete and your story is told, let no one be able to say that you waited for permission or that you slowed when the climb grew steep. Let the record show that you forced yourself to be successful until the very last breath, and that in doing so, you became the rarest of all things, a human being who lived entirely on his own terms. That is the life worth forcing yourself for. That is the summit worth climbing. That is the legacy worth leaving. And now there is nothing left but to begin.